All right, I believe we're live. Make sure we're live. There we go. All right, so here we are again. Last time, we imported and then we beat mapped. So I just hid my beat mapping there by hitting the letter G to hide our global tracks. And I talked about, gating. And what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to go ahead and just edit all the noise out of the toms. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to actually just solo the 3 toms and then zoom in and then just start playing the song. And when I find toms, I'm going to start deleting everything before that. Oh, I'm so sorry. I've got the wrong. There we go. You weren't able to see what I had going on there. There we go. Now we're in Logic. So here we go. Just looking for our first tom hit, and we'll get started cutting. Might not be any in the intro. Nope. There's one there. All right, so click out of there. And notice I've got my group clutch engaged so that I can mess with one at a time. And I'm going to go ahead and cut in front of it, but I'm not going to delete that because I want to wait till I find the next spot. And, when it comes to choosing where you're going to cut the end out, I try to get as much ring as I can without getting the next snare mic. That's the biggest thing that's going to bleed through is snares or cymbals. As a matter of fact, I think I might actually have left these. I'm going to turn those off, actually. There we go. Now, the question I've got is he hitting just his floor tom, or is he hitting both at the same time? But no, I can delete before that point. So let's have a... Yeah, I'm hearing 2 tones there, so he is hitting both of them. So cool. I'm going to zoom in, just make sure I got that nice. And I'm going to leave just a little bit before, and I'll show you how I'm actually going to crossfade all of them together. And it's really easy to do. I'll show you how to do that. Okay. So notice this whole part of the song has floor toms going all the way up until this point here. So I'm not even going to bother cutting out any silence in that. There's our first middle tom. Be careful. Sometimes I forget to cut the end of it out, or I'll, or there might even be an actual just error where a click didn't go through, and you'll end up deleting a tom. In which case, you gotta have the ears to catch it later and go back. And it's really easy to bring it back, as long as you don't delete all the audio on there. You can always just drag the edge, and everything that existed before that will come right back. All right, is that? Okay. Do I want to cut it at the... Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and... I might actually leave that. Just in case. If it rings out, I'm going to listen for it later on, and I'll cut it if I need to. You can almost do this with your eyes. See that I got excited? I almost went ahead without cutting the end of it out there. Just did it again. Yep, looks like he's hitting both of these at the same time. Another way I just verified that is I'm looking at when he hits just the floor tom, I can see the transient up here. That's from the snare. And when he's hitting both of them, I can clearly see it. There's no snare, and this tom isn't leaking in that much. He's hitting both of them together. So now I can zoom in. Let's get this. Is he hitting? I can go ahead and get both of those right there. And delete that. Cool. Sometimes you got to make a judgment call as to whether or not you want the ring. If the ring out is super close to a snare, you know, you got to make the call. I typically leave it in there and let the snare bleed in if necessary to preserve it, and then I might spot EQ that, or I might even spot automate the volume of it. But I like to preserve the ring out of those toms. It's just a judgment call we're gonna have to make a little bit later when we're actually doing the mix. Right now, I'm really more or less just editing to get as much garbage out as I can before we start the mix. All right, so that and that and that can go. And you can already see one right here. All right, we're back to this. Find the end of this floor tom passage right about there, I believe. Yep. Cool. All right, so I'm just going to do this by eyes. And then I'll check it with my ears. The higher toms don't always ring out as much. That's not a definite, but a lot of times they don't. So sometimes you can get away with a little bit less decay time or ring out time. Nothing on the middle right there. I'll leave that in and check that out after the fact. All right, I'm just going to come back and listen to this. I really want a middle tom just to... I'm going to jump ahead and find a middle tom just so I can clean up a little bit. All right, that's definitely one right there. So I can clean up everything before that. Cool, so this is where all that stuff began. All right, so I definitely want to take some of this out. I'm also curious if I have something that's gating that I'm not paying attention to. It doesn't look like it. Okay. See that snare right there? That's not super bad. I'll deal with that later. Love it. He's doing a lot of simultaneous tom hits. Oh, when I did it again, that was dangerous. I could have went on without deleting the end of that and deleted the whole hit. I'm going to actually leave the floor tom open here. Where's our next one? That looks like it right there. I just want to listen back to this. And then because the song is really taken off right there, it's all about the kick and snare and cymbals. I'm not as concerned about letting these. These are actually lighter hits. They're more of a fill. They're part of a fill, so I'm not so worried about that ring out carrying on. Here we are. Let's see. Yeah, it'll be fine. Make sure I'm looking at an actual tom. I love it when they're real obvious like this. It's so much more mindless. It becomes like picking, I don't know, like picking out the brown M&Ms or the green M&Ms or whatever. I'm actually going to do something here. I'm going to turn on my mid and side mics. Just so I got. Make sure if I don't hear something happening in the room mics that's not happening down here. I should have done this before, but I've been doing this enough that I'm fairly confident in what I'm doing. And it's easy enough to bring it back if I mess something up, but this is just kind of how I do it. Just kind of showing you guys my workflow. I'm sure everyone has their own workflow they develop over time, but this is how I've been doing it and gotten relatively speedy. It doesn't look like there's any toms for a while. Sort of a repeat of the intro. All right, so I know he's only hitting this there, even though there's a transient there, but he's got a snare hit as well, so that's real obvious to me. He doesn't have three hands, and he can't hit three upper things at the same time, so I know that's just the tom there. I'll look, make sure I've cut everything else. Okay. This is real obvious what's going on there. I love it. One, two, three, four, 1, 2. Look at that. I might actually stretch that one out because it's flowing a little more. Let me get a little closer to this one. Aha. Another thing, sometimes when you get confused when you're looking at a fill where it's you can kind of look at the snare above it or the toms. This is why I have them in this order. I mean, to me, this is like the obvious order that makes sense. But you got your kick, then you got your snare, then your high tom, mid tom, and low tom. And when you get a descending fill like this, it's just It's just right there. There's your dum, 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 dum. So you can see what he's hitting exactly in slow motion. All right. Let's have a listen back to that. Yeah. Not a whole lot of middle tom hits in this song. So he went back and forth on this a little bit, but I'm going to leave that all the way in, and that'll be okay. Let me listen to that. Now I just... Doesn't look like he hit those. Just want to make darn certain, though. He definitely hit his slow tom right here. So he went back to the snare again. Good. Okay. Good deal. I could actually highlight both of those at the same time if I want. Be a little more accurate. If looks like I can just leave those open. Is he hitting both at the same time, or whoop, 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 whoop. That looks to me like he's hitting the tom and the snare at the same time. Just make sure. Nope, he's not. That's just the snare. Let's see what it sounds like if I clear that out. I do want to leave that other tom ringing. Let's see. Well, now I got a decision to make. Do I want to leave that ringing out? Because it does sound cool to leave that ringing. Another thing I can also do is I got this cool plugin called Track Spacer. I have no affiliations or sponsors like at all. So I'm not, praising them for any ulterior motive. But what it does is it sidechains a signal from another track, and it essentially works like a de-esser, but across the whole entire spectrum of frequencies, and you can dial in what frequency you want it to, affect. And I typically use it from my kick channel on my bass channel, or sometimes even like the whole low section of my drum bus onto the bass guitar. But I've also used it on things like the lead vocal over the guitars, or the lead guitar, if they're both happening at the same time. But what I might actually try later on in the mix is I might try using the snare mic to sidechain and duck those frequencies of the whole toms group. That way, if they're both hitting at the same time, it's not going to get overwhelming. And when I do stuff like that, I try to do as little as possible. I don't know, if there's a cool effect out of overdoing it, then it's, obviously an unrealistic, result of, effects and mix techniques. But when it comes to drums and live music, I really like the live sound. I try to preserve that as much as possible. But anyway, so now we've got our toms all cleaned up, and just listen to a couple of cool spots here and how they kind of cut in and out. Kind of low. Let me turn these up a little bit. Sounds a lot more natural. Now back to clean. It doesn't have all that ringing from the tom mics. The other thing is the toms, they ring out even when you're not hitting them. They just pick up the vibrations of the room. just the same way a microphone does, but they have resonance, so they keep going. Yeah, one little hit there. Another thing I'm going to do in a minute. Another thing I'm going to do in a minute. I'm going to actually, when I get started on the mix, I'm going to go into these regions, and I'm going to try my best to do it in one fell swoop so it preserves that gain structure throughout. But if I have a really low hit that needs to come up, or a really, super loud hit that needs to come down, the way you set your gain in Logic that I've been doing it, and Logic is made for you to do this, is in your inspector here. You hit the letter I to bring that about. And then in your region tab or your region menu, you've got this guy here, gain. So you can grab all the regions that you want to affect. I mean, you can do the whole entire project, or you can do one region. It doesn't matter, but it'll do them equally. And you drag up, drag it down, and you can see how it is raising and lowering the gain of the waveform in these regions for you. And you can go in here and just, spot gain, adjust, make one a little quieter or louder. And that's essentially, you got to be careful. If the gain is affecting, let's say, the preamp or saturation in a way that you want it to be reactive to how hard someone's singing or hitting a drum, you might not want to do that there. You might want to actually just automate the volume or something. But anyway, that's how you cut up your toms nice and clean. And I hope some of you found something useful out of this. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, please. Feel free to shoot me a message or a question. I'm basically going to go through this whole song little by little and show you kind of my strategy of cutting a rock tune from start to finish. I'm sorry I didn't get the setup of the miking and recording. I'm going to do another video on that, but it's pretty straightforward, and we have lots more songs we're going to be recording with the exact same microphone setup, the exact same channel numbers and everything, so I can show you all how to do that later, and it'll apply to how this was done as well. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see y'all on the next one.